I'm Indra,
And I'm Amanda.
and we'd like to welcome you to The Messy Middle Matters. Hey, Amanda, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Indra?
Doing well. I'm doing well. Today, we're talking about something that's like such a classic thing. How the challenge that a lot of folks face staying true to the team that you work with on a day-to-day basis and still finding time and attention to hone your craft in your role. And that's really like, we're going to talk about it from a couple of different angles, but I don't think I've ever been part of an organization where um, that hasn't happened. Like maybe it's not the team, maybe it's the objective of the project, maybe it's like, is it my leadership team that I'm a part of, or is it my craft team? Like there's all these different tensions and different ways of different identities that you hold in an organization, and which one, for lack of a better term, wins in which scenario is always really interesting to me.
Yeah. What comes to mind for me is as a TPM by trade, I've been embedded in engineering teams,
Mhm.
right? Like these are this is the engineering team that I support.
Sure.
However, I've always reported into a PMO or a TPM team with,
Mhm.
a bunch of other TPMs like
Yeah.
me. And sometimes there's like you said, tension there, right? Which team is my team at what time and when?
Exactly. And it's hard. It's really, really hard trying to strike that balance between the two, right? Because there's the there's the people that you spend most of your day with,
Mhm.
and then there's the people that can help you with your craft or your practice or whatever it might be, your skills. Or then there could be a third one, which we hadn't talked about in the past. It doesn't come to mind until we started just talking, is the people who make the decisions about your career. Right? Like,
Yeah.
there's so many different ways that you can frame this thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's tension. It's not necessarily a bad tension. It's just inviting everyone to find the right balance between all of the things.
100%, 100%. So let's start digging into like team loyalty, right? Because I think that that's where the bulk, like if I'm thinking about the 80-20 rule, generally speaking, 80% of my time is spent with my working team, whoever that might
Mhm.
be. And then 20% of my time is spent with my craft. If I'm lucky on some weeks, sometimes it's a lot less than that. But like that importance of belonging and navigating that while still creating the space in that space for that other piece to be. So like team loyalty. Like
Right.
we've talked about team culture before. I remember the Pokemon. I can't remember the names that you had, but I knew it was a Pokemon team that we had
The
in some early episodes. The
Pikas.
Pikas. The
Or the
Pikas.
pikas, right? Like there's a
That's
dual.
Pikachu, so we can go
Yeah.
either way if we wanted to. But and
Yeah.
if I remember, you guys had that discussion. Anyway, I'm stealing your thunder. But that importance of team culture and the benefit of inclusion, like you were saying, from a program management perspective, you are generally speaking the only project or program manager, unless you're working on something that like requires is so big that it requires like a coordinator or somebody else to help out with things. Like you're usually the only person who understands the craft that you call your craft, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're the only person on the team
Mm-hmm.
for illustration purposes, the Pikas, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are the project manager, the program manager, the only person who understands the craft. And you're also embedded in that team culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
You spend most of your time with that team. You said it, like a loyalty to that team.
Mm-hmm.
But, once a week, like me thinking back to when I actually was a part of this team, I think I had one meeting a week, like an hour a week with the rest of the program management
Yeah.
team. And we talked about, what our struggles were, what our wins were, like what our challenges were, and tried
Yeah.
to help each other with hone the craft
Mm-hmm.
that we were hired to do.
Yeah. And I think that what's important about that, we can talk about like different places, but where my brain is going right now is that 1 hour a week, or, that 1 hour a week plus the Slack channel with the people that,
Mhm.
are in your craft or whatever it might be. Like that to me, in my experience, is just such a grounding place to be. It helps me feel like my thing matters. It helps me feel, it feel like I'm doing a good job versus like being liked, because being liked and being effective are two different things. And like if I'm too much in that team mode of trying to be with everyone else and their intrinsic and extrinsic reward systems are not the same as mine, it can be real. I can get lost in the sauce and lose myself and my identity really, if I'm not careful about it.
Yeah, what comes to mind is, and this is a scenario that most, if not all, program managers face,
Mm-hmm.
where they've got to tell on their team. Like their team's not performing. Their team is late. Their team is not going to make that milestone on time, right? What do you do? Do you narc on your
Yeah,
team? Like there's an art to it.
there
But
is
for
an
the
art.
greater good of the organization, yeah, you got to tell someone.
You have to, and I think that's also in my mind in that 20% away. It's like, how do you, no matter what your craft is, whether you're a designer, because designers have the same type of problem, copywriters have the same type of problem. Software engineers tend to, like you and I have cut our teeth largely in technology, right? They tend to be the largest group by far
Mhm.
above all the others. So any of these other crafts and disciplines also face this thing, but like that 20% away from the team, and I'm putting that in air quotes because it may or may not be literally the case, but it allows you to think much more strategically and not in like what's the thing that's literally right now that's gonna make me happy today, make the team happy today. What's going to make the team succeed in the long run? Like you were saying, telling somebody trusted, usually, right? Because you're not going to be running, my team doesn't know what it's doing, it's not going to hit the deadline, like
Right.
you know,
Guess what? My team doesn't know Jack.
woo, missing every deadline for the rest of the quarter. Whoa. No, like you would talk to somebody trusted and say, hey, these are the challenges I'm facing, and doing it with the intention of your team succeeding, right? Like
Right.
that's the beauty of having that like 20%. It gives you the space to do that kind of thinking and help the team, not only yourself succeed in the long run by honing your craft and everything, not only helping the business or the larger organization succeed because there's consistency across teams because you were able to sync up with your craft practitioners, but it also helps that team actually succeed because, you know, hope is not a hope is a survival skill. Let's be very clear. I've made stickers that say that, hope is a survival skill, but hope is not a strategy. Like, and it's not going to like change. You need to confess to the way the world is going and how things are going if you're going to fix it. You cannot delude yourself into succeeding.
Right. You can't just pretend that everything is okay and then, when it's time to show off what you've delivered. Oh, actually, like that didn't happen. Like that is you doing a disservice to your craft. I mean, if you, and I'm still talking in TPM terms, right?
Sure,
Program
sure,
management
sure.
terms of just like this is going down that path would make not only the team who didn't deliver look bad, it would make me look bad.
And let's be honest, it wouldn't set you up for success in your next company. Like,
Correct.
because, I unless you are the person who owns your own business, odds are at some point in time, you're going to be looking for a job in a different company. And if you're not staying true to your craft and true to the understanding of the skills that are expected at your career stage and everything else, when you and the company part ways for one reason or another, you're going to have a hard time finding a role that align that meshes with how you operate, right? So like helping to align with the way that the general world works is also really, it's a little self-serving, but people who are in roles like program management tend to not do enough self-serving stuff, in my opinion, as a
Yeah, also
collective.
my opinion.
So But and so like so there is the value to having the teams, but find that you got to find the time for the other thing. You got to find the time for the other thing. And like you're saying, like when there might be reasons for you to have to quote narc on your team and do
Right.
something that doesn't make them happy. Like so in those scenarios, I mean, I think I gave some perspectives on how I would handle like when do you have any scenarios that come to mind on when you had to say to like the person who's overseeing the strategic roadmap, like, hey, we're not going to hit that one, and how that worked
Yeah.
out, and like the not just the conversation with that person, but the coming back to the team.
Yeah. Well, I would give, I say I would, I have given
Mm-hmm.
the team a heads up, like, hey, during today's, overall weekly status meeting for all the stakeholders on this project, I'm going to let them know that we're not meeting this deadline. And here's
Yeah.
why, right?
Back to the
Here's
why. We've
why
talked about that lots of
it's not a
times.
bad thing,
Yeah.
right? Like framing it as transparency, framing it as getting ahead of the problem,
Yeah.
because not saying it out loud doesn't make the problem go away. We're still not going to meet it.
No, no, it doesn't. I think the pre-telegraphing, because that invites them into the scenario and it prepares them for whatever will come out of your conversation.
Right. And if we've discussed it already, I'll be like, and here, like, I'm gonna tell leadership this is why we're not meeting, this predefined milestone date. Um, Here's what we're doing to try to get back on track, but like no guarantees. And
Yeah.
if we haven't had that conversation, let's have that conversation now. Engineering team, is there anything that we can do to get this back on track? And just being fair and honest
Yeah.
and objective, right? Like these are the facts.
Yeah.
And it's not about like team disloyalty. It's not about making the team look bad.
Yeah.
It's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
And something that I just thought of was that 20% time that we talked about to hone the craft.
Mhm.
This is part of the craft.
It is part of the craft. And I think that where I've struggled in my career is when I have not been able to have not had a clear touch point to go back to craft, right? Where I don't
Mhm.
have those collaborators, where I don't have those people. And I feel, you sometimes you just feel it's lonely. Like it can be
Mhm.
very, very lonely being, the only craft practitioner in a larger group. And it's so important to find. I did a talk on this years ago, actually, Sign Up Summit 2019, I think. It was based on my experience at WeWork as part of a TPM team, right? And there, it was a large part of it was find your tribe, find the people that you have. And like we had our little group of folks that every Friday afternoon we would call it the Rose all day, folks. For those of you like not familiar with WeWork's lore, there was an awful lot of alcohol that we were surrounded by. So a lot of the metaphors and the whatever were sometimes, not a lot of them, but some of them were that. But the Rose All Day Club did not necessarily drink, right? But we were there to hang out together and work through their craft. Sometimes we didn't literally even talk to each other, but we got together and we kept churning on our projects, but shoulder to shoulder with all the rest of the TPMs that were there. There was like 5 of us in that, like when it was at its like, at its juiciest. There was others that joined us in like, there's a cascading set of literal circles around us, of different types of people and ops roles and whatever. But we would all cluster together every Friday, the Rose all day folks. And we would just like keep churning, wrap up your work. And then you could ask them like, oh, that was crazy, or that was this, that was that. Like that is also part of craft because you need your craft community.
Yeah. That reminds me of I had the word and I just lost it. Guilds.
Guilds. Yeah, it's similar to
Yeah.
guilds. It's similar
Yeah.
to guilds. Yeah,
Yeah. Like there's, I've been in organizations where there's been an engineering guild, there's been a design guild, there's just, these frameworks, these groups that are put together to allow people to find their community, uh, even if their team, or actually, especially if their team is just so focused on delivering the thing, right?
Yeah.
Where does your 20% like honing the craft time go?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we covered a lot of it. I think that it is like understanding, recognizing the fact that you have your day-to-day team, and there will be something that you need to serve and be part of your team, and that will feed you in one way. That's usually, in my experience, very like short-term rewards, right? Like it gives me a sense of belonging. It gives me a lot of like on like a literal day-to-day basis. Like I have a place to go and people to work with. And then there's your craft. There's your craft or your subcraft, as you're talking about the guilds. I was thinking all the various like sub-engineering functions that sometimes have these
Mm-hmm.
various guilds or special interest groups or whatever they might be. Make sure that you find the time and carve out the time to connect with those so that you can actually feed those long-term incentives, those things that are a little bit more durable, those things that last from job to job. And if you don't, and if you don't, and if you don't, we should touch on this just a little bit too. If you don't have that connection in your work, because I bet you that enough of our listeners are like just a one person show, the only of their kind in their entire company. Like that's hard. Find your community outside. And that might be listening to podcasts, not necessarily that it could be ours, like, hey, I think of this as a community. I don't know how anyone listening thinks of it. I think of this as a community. Um, and so it might be listening to podcasts, it might be reading books, it might be joining like forums. There's enough Slack communities. The design ops assembly is fantastic. It might be going to meetups that are craft or craft adjacent. Find the way to feed yourself, because it'll without both of those, it's just insufficient, or it's not as sufficient as it could be, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's something to be said about you are responsible for your career, right? Like your career is something that you will take from job to job. Like that is what a
Yeah.
career is.
Yeah.
The team that you are embedded in and work with day to day may not always be there. So ensure that you give yourself the time and space to hone your craft and to improve and get better and learn more things and progress in your career.
It's nourishment. It's nourishment. Thank you, Amanda, for another rich conversation. And thank you to everyone for listening and for joining us. Hopefully, you got something out of the conversation that was valuable, or at least you felt seen and again, part of a community. And I hope you'll join us next time when we cover another topic from the messy middle. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for taking time with us in the messy middle. Word of mouth remains the most powerful way for people to find us. If this episode sparked something for you, we'd love it if you'd subscribe to the podcast on your favorite app, download a few episodes, and share it with someone else who's navigating the in between. Do you have ideas for future episodes or topics you'd like us to explore? You can find our feedback form at themessymiddlematters.com or in the show notes. Thank you for joining us on this journey. This work is better when we do it together. Until next time.